Keep your mask on at all times. If you do need a break, just raise your hand. We'll let you go take a break real quick. Okay? So today we have our last panelist here. I know when I was in the classroom I had told you that you would have 2 more days with panels, but due to some circumstances we had to switch it up a little bit. So we combined your last 2 panels here with us today. So we are going to have arts, hospitality, and education is here for you. And then we also have STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, agriculture, and math. So hopefully we have some questions that we are going to ask our panelists so that we can gain some great information from them, because they are here with you for the whole block to answer any questions that you have. All right, so at this time, what I'm going to ask is for our panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves.
All right, good morning. I don't even feel like I did that, but I'm Mrs. Reed. I'm the English teacher at the end of the hall, room 617. I am so happy to be here with you guys this morning. You all look fabulous and so awake. And I am an open book, so you have to ask lots of questions.
Yes, ask lots of questions. I'm Ed Norden, KRLN in Star Country, and I still do part-time work. It's been a career that I've been involved with in 40 plus years, and I took 12 years outside of my broadcast career to do 12 years as a Fremont County Commissioner. So yes, I'm interested in hearing lots of questions from you.
I'm Sarah McClernon. I'm a biologist with the Bureau of Land Management. I help run the grazing program for the BLM. Yeah, feel free to ask anything. I've done a lot of different jobs outside of the BLM as well, with biology.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Cundiff. I'm the Executive Director for Fremont Center for the Arts. If you don't know where that's at, just right across the parkway from the library. Lived in Canyon since 2018. My background is not actually from the art community. It's actually within the finance realm. So I'm looking forward to hearing all the questions you guys have.
I'm Alex. I'm a civil engineer with Three Rocks Engineering. So I tell people to move dirt that way and that way. Sometimes put a pipe in it.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we are going to turn it back over to the students for some questions for our panelists.
Carly has a question. Yeah, what's your first question, Carly?
How did you get started doing what you're doing?
Fabulous. Okay. So I graduated from Canyon City High School in 2006. I went straight to college, thought I wanted to be a doctor, took my first science class, didn't want to be a doctor. That was a lot of work. I got into mass communications, where I enjoyed my first class so much that I knew that that was the path that I wanted to take. Mass communications could be anything from marketing to advertising to public speaking to creating advertisements for small companies, big companies, all the things talking to people, right? So how did I become a teacher? I worked at a TV station straight out of college. That was really fun, but really time consuming. And I decided that I wanted to have a family more than I wanted to stay up overnight producing the news. So I had a sweet little family happen just like that. Had my husband married, and 2 months after our first date, we have 2 beautiful girls. We've been married 10 years, and being a teacher had always been in the background. I'd always thought about it, and it is the perfect fit for being able to contribute to my community and spend time with awesome 14 to 18-year-olds, but also be a mom. So that's how I ended up teaching.
Okay, so I grew up on a farm in Kansas, and out of my dad and his 2 brothers, there were 9 children, 8 girls and 1 boy, and I was the 1 boy that didn't stay home on the farm, which I'm sure disappointed my grandfather. But I went to I attended college at Fort Hays University in Hays, Kansas with pursuing a degree in speech, and Andy will appreciate the fact that I was majoring in theater, except the fact that theater people are kind of a cliquish group, and I didn't fit the clique at that university, so I really enjoyed the people I was associated with in broadcasting. So I took more broadcasting classes and then followed that path and found that I liked it, and ended up in radio and more radio. And even for 45 plus years, I've only been in 3 locations. The first location for 3 months, the second location for 10 years, and this last location for 38 years here in Canyon City. And I love the area as much as I love the job, so we raised our 2 kids here. And I don't know, I've always enjoyed, my focus was news, and that involves some long hours. And when you're the only news person on the staff, that means late nights, early mornings. But I developed some lifelong relationships with people in government, fire, police, sheriff, and I don't know, I just ate it up. But finally, you know, the hours got to where I wanted to do something else. So, and the broadcast career actually led me into running for public office, because I found out that my knowledge as a reporter, I became more familiar with the issues over those years than the people who were in elective office at the time, because I'd been following it and attending meetings for years upon years, and I knew more about the issues than a lot of them. So I was asking questions I already knew the answers to, so that's why I took a detour there for 12 years.
So in high school, I really loved arts and sciences. So I originally went to school to be a science book illustrator, and I wanted to get a science degree to understand that part of it. And then it turns out I was terrible at cell biology, genetics, all the little detail ones. So I ended up getting a degree in ecology from Western State College in Gunnison, Colorado. And I originally went for wildlife, and that was my first job out of college. I was a wildlife technician for the Bureau of Land Management here. And then I kind of was like, maybe I don't want to do that. So I ended up getting a forestry job after that. Because when you do biology work for, especially outside, you kind of follow the seasons. So it's really hard to track animals in like 10-foot snowdrifts. So I worked seasonally for the past almost 10 years now, where I've worked in wildlife, forestry, rangeland management. I worked in Guam for a little bit, Nevada, New Mexico, fire rehab stuff, and then I really looked at what I wanted to do, and what I really enjoy is managing the landscape as a whole. Whereas in wildlife, you're managing the critters, and forestry, you're managing the trees, and I like to look at the whole landscape. So I ended up going into rangeland management, which is managing the whole area, and then you're adding in the uses on the landscape, so like cattle, recreation, hunting, stuff like that. And I really enjoyed that, the challenge of having so many uses on one landscape and making it all work. And so to be able to be a rangeland manager, I had to go back and get my master's degree to get the qualifying classes. So that's kind of how I fell into rangeland management, was just the job fit what I really like to do, and I slowly worked my way into it after trying out a bunch of other stuff. This job now combines everything I really like to do.
So my life has been a series of interesting events. And even though I said that I didn't come from an art background in high school, I was in the theater. Loved it. in their securities exchange, as well as moving to Los Angeles and working in an entertainment business management firm. So managing people's finances, actors and actresses and writers and producers, like Steve Martin and the singer-songwriter Glenn Fry, like Glenn Fry, and had an amazing experience. Got to go to premieres, got to meet celebrities, got to do all of those things. It was really, really cool. But it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And so I continued that career in finance because, it was something that I was familiar with, that was comfortable to me. I left California, moved to Colorado to get a breath of fresh air, and continued to work in local governments and finance until I moved to Canyon. I worked for the city of Canyon for a little over a year, and found that I really wanted to do something that, inspired me and motivated me. And so one of my hobbies is restoring old homes. I think old homes have such character and history and need to be preserved. Moving to Canyon, I started attending the Fremont Center for the Arts, going to their first Fridays, seeing the galleries, and became a member, and really found it to be a hub for the community. And obviously wanted to support it as much as I possibly could. Well, as I said, my life has always been a series of very interesting events, and the former director decided to step down and move on to focus on family and a possible move. And the board actually asked, hey, you know what, you have a finance background, have you ever thought of maybe working as the director? I said, no. But after thinking about it, and again, wanting to be a part and have some kind of a lasting effect, a positive effect on my community, I decided to do it. And I've actually enjoyed it immensely. It's a huge challenge. There's every day is a different experience, but wouldn't trade it for anything.
All right, so I was, I wouldn't say I was great at it, but I really liked math. I really liked doing puzzles in high school. So I grew up in a family where it's kind of expected that you would go to college, so I went to college. So I knew I wanted to be an engineer. Then decided on civil because at that point I thought I might have the opportunity to go into mission work, and civil kind of best fit that, so that way I could help people across the world with that. Graduated, met my awesome wife here in the great city of Canyon City. We moved around a little bit, finally got our way back here, and yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you. Next question.
Yellow shirt, oh no, blue shirt has a question.
Right there.
What is the hardest part of your job?
And we'll just go ahead and we'll go through the whole panel on the questions.
We're gonna be interactive. Okay, the hardest part of my job is you guys. Everybody stand up. Do it. Stand up. Do you know how hard it is to keep the attention of a 14-year-old? Have you ever talked to your friends while they have their phone in their hand? Is it so hard to get them to actually pay attention to you? Okay, that is the hardest part about being a high school teacher, is keeping your attention. But if you're really good at it, you've got these little tricks like getting them to move and using your voice and being actually excited to be at your job. So, I strongly suggest, if you're thinking about being a teacher, that you also are pretty theatric, because if you're theatric, then maybe your students will pay attention to you. I think the second hardest part about being a teacher is knowing so much about you and caring so much about you that when you're having a hard day, it impacts the teacher. So take that times 4 classes, typically 25 to 30 kids. That's a lot of emotion to package, right, for me to keep. So knowing how to keep your audience's attention, make sure that you have lots of energy, and being able to absorb what's going on with your students, caring about them, and being able to offer advice. So that is the hardest part about being a teacher. All of you, big stretch. Big stretch, do it. Come on, blue shirt, I saw you. You were trying to fall asleep in your little ball. Okay, big stretch, now you can sit down. Go ahead, Mr. Norton.
All right, well, I'll be more interested in talking about the things that are enjoyable about the job than the hardest part. Probably the hardest part was, for 13 years, I was the general manager of the radio stations. And all of a sudden, I do all my other news work and now have to be responsible for running a successful business. And in broadcasting, you're licensed by the federal government through the Federal Communications Commission. And the most brain-damaging piece of management was the federal government requirements in broadcasting for equal employment opportunity. The paperwork and reports that you had to file, because in broadcasting you have to actively recruit minorities. And when you have a very low minority population, like we have in Fremont County, how do you go out and recruit minorities? It's tough, but you have to at least show a diligent effort. And I got so sick of the paperwork for the federal government, and I'm sure there's other types of businesses that, you know, whether it's federal or state requirements that are headaches, but it's just part of doing business. And so that's the part of it that's distracted from me doing the kind of things that I really enjoyed on a daily basis. So I was glad, actually, well then, so then I leave 13 years of management to become an elected official, and then then things really got difficult, because you can't do anything right, because somebody always finds fault with what's going on. But that's probably was most difficult.
You stole mine. The paperwork is a lot, and I just struggle in general with the amount of paperwork in the federal government sometimes is astronomical. We kill a lot of trees with everything we have to print out. But besides that, that's going to be in any job, you know, timesheets, like mailings, all that stuff. But I think the hardest part for my job, that's enjoyable too, is constantly having to learn. So at least for me, having to manage a bunch of different aspects of the landscape, you're constantly having to be a jack of all trades. So like, I'm going to have to learn how to weld at some point, and I need to also know how to run these new statistical programs that are coming out. So that's a huge challenge and a hard part, but it's also really fun to be able to be constantly learning in your job.
I think the hardest part about being an executive director, coming in after someone else has been there, and so many others have been in that position, is define the perception that the community has of an organization, as well as procuring the resources that are necessary to operate a facility like SCA. Meaning the fundraising, the volunteers, there's so many different facets to the organization. And it's easy just to look at a building and say, oh, well, there's the Center for the Arts. No, there's a lot of things that go on to make that entire thing happen. The shows that happen. So it's getting with the sponsors who are going to provide the funding for that show, the artists who are going to produce the art. So there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of outreach that happens, and so procuring those resources is probably the biggest challenge. It's a challenge to me. It's not something that's the hardest, but again, there's a lot of things that have to happen in order to produce either our classes, our shows, and our fundraisers.
helping people believe in physics. Every once in a while you get a client that they don't care how you do it, they just want you to do the impossible, defy wind or gravity and all of those things. And big joke is water always runs downhill except for towards money or power. Yeah, so just helping people and clients understand the way things work, and some things either aren't physically possible or aren't allowed by regulations, things like that.
All right, hey, thank you. Next question. Go ahead.
What's one of the craziest things you've seen while working?
What are the craziest things that you guys have seen in these hallways? For real. The craziest thing that I've ever seen. I don't even know. You guys are a surprise basket. There's always something going on. I don't know that I necessarily always see the crazy, but I hear about it. Apparently last weekend there was a kid that thought he could jump over a car. He didn't make it, ran into the car, broke the window, ended up at the hospital. So I don't always see it, but I hear about it. You guys are hilarious.
Actually, I thought about this, I don't know if the craziest, but a couple of incidents. One of them was one of the most fascinating stories I ever covered as a reporter. And then the other one was kind of a wake-up call as to my responsibility as a journalist. I always said one of the most fascinating stories I ever covered was, I think it was in the late 1980s or early 1990s at the Holy Cross Abbey. On the south side of the Abbey, there's a double door that you enter, and then the minute you enter those double doors to the side, there's two more doors that go into a small chapel. And it was in June of that year, a summer morning, nice, beautiful summer morning, and I heard on the police scanner that there was a mountain lion in the Abbey Chapel. And I hurried down there at 8:15 in the morning, and the fascinating piece of that story, this nun had gone to the communion rail in the chapel to pray morning prayers, and as she heard something, and this mountain lion walked into the chapel, walked down the aisle to the back of the chapel and sat there. She managed to get out of there and close the doors, and wildlife officer came, and the lion was still sitting at the back of the chapel, and shot a dart to tranquilize it, and they removed the mountain lion. It was like, wow, this is crazy. The other wake-up call was when I was in western Nebraska, and it was a Sunday morning, and I heard on the police radio that there was a plane crash, or that they saw wreckage of a light plane about a half mile from the county airport. And I hurried to the radio station and grabbed my tape recorder, and on the way out of town, I ran a red light because I was in a hurry. Well, this guy saw me run the red light. He was out Sunday morning looking for his daughter who failed to return home Saturday night. And I went out to the crash site along US Highway 71, and he followed me out there. And two young men and a girl died in that plane crash. And he had followed me to the crash site. It turns out that the girl in the plane crash was his daughter. And that was a wake-up call for me as the responsibility I held as a journalist. It was nothing directly how I reported it, but it was like, wow, this is serious stuff. And the information that people rely on and what you do in your job is vitally important.
There's a lot of crazy stuff that you see outside. Like, I used to do bird surveys early in the morning, so you start at 4, and you get done by noon, and everything's just out at that time. so once the fire's done, you'll go in and just kind of see what rehab efforts you need to make, whether it's cutting trees, planting grass, whatever. But we weren't able to do a lot on that Spring Creek fire just because of how steep everything was down in Huerfano County 2 years ago. And the recovery that we've seen naturally is just incredible. So I think that's the coolest thing, where it's like, it all kind of takes care of itself. And so sometimes you don't have to like constantly be doing something to make stuff better after fire. It's fascinating.
I wouldn't call it the craziest thing that's happened, but an interesting thing. My first show when I first started with FCA was The Color of Hope. That's a partnership that we have with the federal prison system, Supermax out in Florence. It's an art program that they allow specific prisoners who meet criteria to produce art in a group. And they showed that art in our gallery. And so we actually plan on expanding that program for next year. So I hope you guys can all come out and take a look at it. It's a really interesting opportunity to see something that you probably wouldn't. A federal inmate who may be in for life producing art. And most of these prisoners came to art after they were incarcerated. And so very interesting to see the level of creativity and artistry in some of these inmates. But the most interesting part about that was that they wrote to me. And so I received 3 letters from inmates thanking me for continuing this program and allowing them to have that platform that they otherwise wouldn't. But pretty interesting to get a letter from someone in a federal penitentiary.
So nothing's that crazy in civil engineering. If something's crazy or even moving, then something probably went really wrong. At my last job, I got to work a lot up in Aspen, which was really fun and challenging because there's a ton of regulations, but there's also people that have ridiculous amounts of money and are willing to pay whatever it is to solve this problem. So the craziest project I got to work on was, there's a big building. It consisted of 12 townhomes and then an underground parking garage with a big green roof on top. What happened was this was built in 1991 and they just like threw a bunch of dirt and boulders and anything they could find to make this green roof. It's about 6 foot deep, so you think 6 foot of dirt and boulders and stuff, so that's really heavy. And then on top of that, they planted a bunch of trees on top of it. And these trees, they started off small, but they ended up getting like 1 to 2 foot in diameter, so they got really heavy. So we got this call saying, hey, there's cracks in this garage, can you come look at it? And we looked at it, and it was like, oh yeah, that's concerning. And so we did a big analysis on it, figured out it's like 150% overloaded, and the kicker was all these townhomes were worth $14 million each. So they had really fine furnishes and everything because it was downtown Aspen. So it was a really fun project, but it was just interesting to look back at how it was done originally and what happened over the years. And so we replaced all of it, fixed all of it, and got it all taken care of.
All right, great question. Next question. Go ahead.
What schooling is required to?
Good question. All right. So, if you know off the get-go that you want to be a teacher, any teachers out there? Raise your hand if you're thinking about being a teacher. All right, cool. Way to go. You're my favorite. All right, just kidding. So, if you want to be a teacher, you know you want to be a teacher, you can go straight into college and get your bachelor's degree in education, 4 years. If you're awesome and you know Miss Tedesco here, you can get a lot of those credits taken care of through our program here at the high school. So you're going to want to listen to those announcements, take advantage of those college courses, and cut down some of that time, save some money. Now, if you take a less traditional approach and it takes you a little while to figure out that you'd like to be a teacher, there's another option. So I have my degree in mass communications. That's clearly not education, correct? Right? Okay. So how did I become a teacher? I went through CU Denver's Aspire to Teach licensure program. It was a year-long program. CSU Pueblo also has one, and it's 2 years long. and you simultaneously teach while you're learning to teach if you have a four-year degree already.
Specifically to radio, you may not need a degree, but in speaking in journalism, as she mentioned, mass communication, you probably should pursue a journalism degree. Specifically, in my case, I probably didn't need it because I found over the years, I did a lot of I was self-taught a lot and learning through hard knocks, how to write, how not to write, how to interview. Interviewing the live interviews was the thing I enjoyed most. The thing that I found that I was deficient in most from a broad spectrum when I started reporting, particularly in local government, was my background in economics and local government, because you're learning on the fly. Because I remember the first time I started looking at a municipal or a county budget, my head was spinning. It's like, how do I interpret this to the layman so that the reader or the listener can understand what you're talking about and appreciate it? I mean, you can throw numbers out, but I felt particularly deficient from a broad educational background, both from high school as well as college, on basic economics and government. And I think if I were to tell you today what you can do today as freshmen to study for writing or journalism, is to, number one, learn how to spell, learn how to write, and read some more. Some of the best advice is you are what you read. And if you engage in a conversation one-on-one with friends or a large audience, you can carry on a conversation because of what you read.
Does anyone want to get into the hard sciences, geology, biology, physics? Anyone know right off the bat? All right, so you can go two different ways. I am a field biologist, so I work outside, very practical, but I've also worked in research. And research requires different education a little bit. So I have my degree in biology. Generally, you'll need a bachelor's degree. If you're going to work for any federal government, you really need to look at what their qualifications are. That's why I had to go back to school, was because I had a lot of a little bit of every field. So, and nothing really specific. So going back to school, I had to get those very specific classes in rangeland management. If you want to do research, I would highly recommend getting a lot of experience while you're in college. Like, sign up for these research studies, sign up to help out with like the analysis or taking data. And then if you want to be a field biologist, it's similar, like, or geologist or whatever. It's really helpful when you get out of school to already have like practical experience. And you can get that through helping out a professor with a special project or volunteering once you get out of school. But it's a lot of academic rigor, but when you get out into the real world, it's all pretty practical. So your academics sets up your basis, but then once you get out of school, you really need to learn how to apply that. Another thing that I didn't get in school, but probably would have been good, is the computer classes.
That means I can do my other job.
Geospatial analysis,
I can work on my other job.
stats classes,
You know, if I need
those
cross,
will be pretty important if you want to get into the sciences.
No, you're fine.
There's really no degree
Okay,
that's
thank you.
required to be
Get better.
executive
Get
director.
rest.
It does help if you have an art background, an art degree, it certainly help. But I think anyone considering going into working for a nonprofit, whether in upper management or volunteering, nonprofits are feast or famine, depending on where you're at. You're constantly looking for funding, and as I said in the previous question, that you're looking for those resources. So it's a hunt and find kind of thing for volunteers, funding, teachers, artists, all of those different things. So it really comes down to how passionate are you for a specific nonprofit. I wish there was some kind of a degree that you could get, and there probably, you know, in some schools there probably are more specific degrees for the nonprofit role. But again, having that passion is really, really key.
Does anybody want to be an engineer? Look at that. I like the confidence in raising your hand too. See, a lot of you guys do this little thing like that, which is fine, but right there, that gets you far in life, just having that confidence. So, what do you think that you have to do to become an engineer? Like, what's your goal for education? Yep.
Oh, I'm not sure yet.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess the question was answered or asked for a reason. So, traditionally, you know, most people think to be an engineer, you have to go to college, get your bachelor's degree, maybe a master's, then move on from there. I got a bachelor's degree, did not get a master's. Most of the time for civil engineers, honestly, just get a bachelor's degree and get a job. We get a lot of people that get masters and doctorates, but they're going to start at the same level, so they're going to spend more money and more time getting that extra degree, but they're going to start down at the bottom just like the rest of us. Y'all have an amazing drafting program here. When you start off as an engineer in the real world, most of the time you're spending 80 to 90% of your time doing drafting on AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Revit, whatever. Unfortunately, a lot of colleges, they only teach one semester of drafting and it doesn't get you very far. So I'm able to hire people straight out of y'all's high school. Like we have a couple of drafters right now that came from here in Florence that went through y'all's drafting program, and they're just a huge help because I'm able to teach them these other things like drainage, hydraulics, statics, dynamics, and all that. But having that background is just so huge, and y'all really have an amazing program here. So traditionally, you get a bachelor's degree and go get a job. In the state of Colorado right now, another route you can do is instead of spending 4 years getting a bachelor's and then 4 years under a PE to get your PE license, professional engineering license to get sued, what you can do is you can work for a PE for 12 years, so that's 12 years instead of 8. Then you don't have to go to college, you're making money the whole time, and then you can still get your PE license. So it's a really underutilized route, but for anybody who may want to be an engineer but doesn't want to go to college, that's a really good route too. And like I said, I mean, y'all just have an awesome program here that's really unique, that allows people like me to be able to hire drafters right out of high school, and they can work on their route towards becoming an engineer.
All right, thank you. Okay, so let's all stand up again because it looks like we are starting to lose some steam. So everyone stand up. Let's stretch up over our heads, hands up. All right, now come on, go down to your toes. We're not sitting yet. We are stretching. Unfortunately, we cannot have you guys move around too much here just because we have to keep our distance. So this is the best we could do, is do some stretches. Wake ourselves up. All right. One more time. Up over your head. Okay, thank you. Let's go on to our next question.
Amber has a question?
Yeah, what are the skills needed for the job?
Skills needed. Sheesh. You gotta be good at everything to be a teacher, right? You gotta be able to be motivated. You've gotta know that even if you're talking and no one is listening, you've gotta make big noises to wake them up so that you're aware that they are, trying to still fall asleep on you even though we just stretched. Now, what are the skills? You've gotta be self-motivated. You've got to be a people person, clearly. If you're an elementary teacher, you probably shouldn't be afraid of boogers. So, you know, you've got to have that mom sense or that dad sense to have a heart for the kids that you're working with, but you've also got to be strict to know when to draw the line. So I'd say personal people skills, got to be able to read, write, listen, all the good stuff. Okay, you guys are awesome. Keep asking good questions. Wake up. Yes? Okay.
Pretty much the same thing. You need a vast knowledge of what's going on around you. If you're going to be a journalist, you need to have some self-confidence. What amazes me sometimes because as I commented, I always like doing live interviews. And sometimes I like making people feel uncomfortable with the questions I ask. Because in some of these settings, even here on a local radio station, it's like, ask a tough question. Even when I was a county commissioner, I was disappointed that, you know, ask me a tough question. Because I always felt like I wasn't getting tough enough questions as an elected official. What other skills? Well, you need to have some, I think some of my theatrical background helped me because, you know, if you're broadcasting, you have to have some level of performance. I never did feel like I developed my broadcasting voice until about 10 to 12 years, because I still have my original audition tape from 1972. If I played you that, you'd say, who's that guy? Because the way I sound today is not like I sounded in 1972. So I developed, through years of being on the air, I always said I had three voices. I had a conversation voice, I had a selling voice to sell you something, and then I had a news voice to deliver the news. So it's kind of a stage presence because I kind of enjoy being on stage once in a while in my free time.
Probably about the same, just being a people person and being able to talk to people. One of the bigger things is being able to translate the science down to like what you can actually use, or like being able to communicate with people. I think is one of the biggest things. Because you can learn anything, but being able to talk to someone about it, that's a really big skill.
Well, public speaking, which, who here likes public speaking? Wow, great, more than I thought. Yeah, being able to, again, along the same lines, it's being able to communicate to your audience, which my audience is you, the community, and expressing the passion. That's another one, is having a passion for what you do is an ideal skill, because no matter what obstacle is going to be put in front of you, you're going to find a way around it. So, yeah, that to me, having a passion is everything.
Probably math, puzzle solving. That's probably like your base level, get into engineering. If you're not good at those, or you're trying to like force it to happen, or you gotta find a passion to make it happen. To be a good engineer, if you can solve puzzles, figure all that out, that's great. What makes a great engineer though, which I'm not there yet, but having the people skills to be able to communicate your knowledge over to people. Because you can go into a closet and just design the heck out of something, make it something that's amazing, but if you can't express to people what it does, why it's important, anything like that, then it's not really going anywhere. You're not changing the world with anything.
All right, great question. Next question. Go ahead.
What was it like when you hit your lowest point in your job and you were just stuck, and how'd you get yourself out of it?
Great question.
That's a really good question. Okay, so you guys were in 8th grade last year when we all got sent home, right? Okay. We didn't have school on that Friday when we got going home for spring break meant uncertainty, no structure, and so his emotions were already high. Couple that with the fact that all of us knew that something was happening. There was this virus in China and it was making its way here, and it was unknown to us at that point in time how severe it was going to be, right? But you could feel it. Could you feel it in 8th grade? Did you know that it was just kind of funky, something was weird? So here's this kid who doesn't want to go home already. And here are these teachers who are thinking like, we're about to pack up and not come back. We know that this is going to be a big deal. And it's also the last day of the quarter. And as a weird second-year teacher, I thought that I should still be trying to teach on the last day of the quarter instead of packing things up and kind of just finishing up, right? Like, typically it's kind of a movie day. You recognize that at the end of the quarter, right? Because we're just turning in all the late assignments. So this kid has an F. He doesn't want to go home, and the world is weird. And he loses his poop, you guys. Like, flips his lid over something small. And he's yelling. And I don't have the notion at the time to not react to him. What I should have done was take in what he was saying and let it happen. But the problem was that he was yelling in the classroom and losing his mind, and all I knew was to get him out. And I'm telling him, get out, get out, get out. You can't do this in a classroom. And then lo and behold, he runs down to the office and it's taken care of. He settles down. The world recognizes that he's just having a hard day. That's what's happening in the office. But on my end of things, I go home and then we stay home, and that's my last day of school until we come back this year. So I'm stuck with that feeling of knowing that the last day of school just sucked, and I didn't end on a good note with this kid. So how do I overcome something like that? It sucked for a little while, knowing that that was how we left school. That was really hard, and I was really upset about it for a long time. But I recognized the fact that that was one kid, and if I held on to that for too long, it would affect my next groups of kids, right? So my goal every day, even if I'm not feeling it, is that I come into the classroom and I see Kyle and I see Braden, who have joined us up there, and I make sure that I have a good attitude for them. And every time the class changes, I do it for them too. So just recognizing that sometimes small things that blow up into a huge thing can be brought back down to a small thing. And in the grand scheme of things, it's okay to recognize that sometimes stuff sucks and you gotta move on.
I don't recognize any specific lowest point. I think cumulatively, because I worked a lot of 60-hour weeks, and I went home at night feeling like I had work that was left undone, like I could have done more, even after I worked a 60-hour week. And so in retrospect, if I had regrets, it was that I needed to find a level of satisfaction with what I had accomplished and allow myself more time for myself and my family. Because I think, when I finally decided to switch gears and run for county commissioner, I had reached a certain level of burnout because of the demands I placed upon myself. So actually when I switched those careers, it was actually a reprieve to do something else. So the lowest point was probably just like, okay, identify what my limits are and be satisfied with the job I was doing.
It's hard to identify like a specific low point, but I think they're all along the same line of like not being able to complete the job that I was given and actually like failing at that job. And what got me out of it is being able to take a step back, look at the whole situation. It's like, would I have been able to accomplish that if I was given every resource I needed? And sometimes it's yes, and I need to step up my game and learn from that, and other times it's no. And when it's no, you have to just take a step back and be like, leave work at work, and then come back back the next day and just do your best, and if the whole job doesn't get done, then you just work with your bosses or whoever it is to make a better plan to have it be completed in the future or in a different way. Yeah, the biggest thing to get out of that is just take a breath and look at the whole situation and say, can I do better, or is it just something you can't accomplish on your own?
It's not, I don't think there's one specific situation that stands out. I've done a lot in my career, obviously in finance and now in the arts. I think right now, we're in such an interesting time, and being the head of an art center where it's supposed to be the center, and we're supposed to have lots of classes and lots of programming and all of those things, that we're kind of sitting there idle, waiting for the okay. So trying to be respectful, our perception within the community. We don't want to seem like we're doing too much. We certainly still want to offer programs to the community, but it's me being in the position only 4 months now, and obviously taking the position in the middle of a pandemic has been very interesting. How my organization adapts and what we do to still offer services that we do to the community, but again, within the respectful boundaries that we currently have. So it's just figuring out how to adapt and still trying to give back, but do it in the most respectful way.
So a few months ago, well, let me back up. So civil engineer, not structural, means I'm afraid of buildings, don't want to touch them, they're dangerous, and people get sued about them all the time. But this area has a need for structural engineers. There's a lot of old buildings, some of them are kind of leaning or falling or different things like that. And people need structural engineers for new buildings too, right? So there's not a single structural engineer around here. You gotta usually ship them out of Pueblo or Springs. So I have a buddy of mine that is a structural engineer, so we started offering some structural services through him as what's called a sub-consultant. And we started doing that, getting a lot of work, and so then I decided, you know what, it's time we're gonna hire a structural engineer in training, someone fresh out of their master's, brought them on, super smart gal, very thankful for her. And we were working on a project a couple months ago for someone who doesn't believe in physics. Remember we talked about that a little bit earlier? And we were working on this project, and we kept going with it and giving him stuff, and then after a while we realized the client, even though he's in the kind of construction industry, he doesn't know how to read construction documents. So by the time we were at the end, he was like, oh, I can't do this, blah, blah. And he got to the point where he was yelling at the sub-consultant and, saying really disrespectful stuff I'm not allowed to repeat here. And eventually I had to calm him down and basically tell him to stop. You can, have your money back, whatever, but we're not going to be acting like children over here. And that was not fun. Long story short, got to the end of the project, gave him all of his money back just to get him to walk away and cool off. And so then we basically wasted a month, had to pay my sub-consultant, give this guy his money back. So all this money down the drain, and I just, hired on this new engineer in training. She moved here from another city, invested a lot of money in getting her here, and a lot of other stuff. And so it's like, man, first big project went terrible, worst project of my life. And just, worst client I've had, all these different things. So what helped me get out of it though was just, first of all, praying the heck out of it, like it all depended on God, and working like it all depended on me, and then just taking a step back, looking at everything as a whole, looking at all the finances of the project, seeing, okay, what are we doing in the future, and then figuring out, okay, is this still feasible? Can we still make this happen? And now, luckily, because of my amazing team, we're able to do a lot more structural work, and they're really doing well, and we've had really good experiences with clients and stuff.
All right, so I think we have looks like about 10 minutes left, so let's do some follow-up questions or wrap-up questions. What other questions?
What would you say your biggest benefits are with the pay and stuff like that?
Do you remember what I said was the hardest part of my job? Pop quiz, what's the hardest part?
get into radio if you want to get rich. The rewards are, I think I said that at the beginning, the people I have met, the lifelong relationships, and I don't know, just the, when I look, right now I'm looking back and I'm going through archived audio from 30 years ago, and I'm going to turn over a lot of that archived audio and interviews to the History Center, and I'm reliving some of that. And so I get to relive some of the appreciation for the people that I interviewed and the stories that I covered. And so that's been a kind of a reward, just to go back and remember how those things came about, and even the stories that were not necessarily good news, but were important to the community, and reflecting on the impact they had on the community and the people that were involved. So it's not about the pay.
The biggest benefit is where I work. I work outside, and I've worked in all kinds of really cool areas, and I get into places for projects that no one goes, and that's one of the biggest benefits, is I love where I work, and I love what I do. I really love working with permittees and making projects and plans to how to improve their grazing, or how can we have a bigger elk population over here. That's the best part of my job. Like everyone else said, you're not going to get into biology or any science getting rich. You're probably going to be like asking for grants and barely paying yourself, honestly.
No different, if you're looking to get rich, nonprofits are probably not the place for you. The real reward is giving back to your community. I've been in this community, a short time, and it has so many wonderful things to offer. And so if I can impact it in the most positive way, then I've done something. I've had the ability to work for, as I've said, large corporations, governments, things. The end of the day, yeah, making a nice paycheck is great, but does it give you value? Does it give you the true reward? I think I would have preferred to be in this situation, even though it's a challenge. Never a dull moment. You're always looking again for those resources. It's the reward that when somebody comes in and says, thank you so much. If I've impacted one person by introducing them to art, the appreciation of art, or becoming an artist, and they're truly living their passion, then my job's done.
Biggest benefit. So civil engineers, definitely like the bottom of the bucket when you talk about engineer pay. It's not bad, but it's down there. They get like mechanical and petroleum. You're up at the top there, but you might lose your job at any second, so that's not fun. Biggest benefit though for me personally is definitely working with people. I was never the smartest kid in my class. I was never, I did okay. But what I really enjoy is working with people and helping them really see what they can do. Because everybody that works with me, honestly, is probably a lot smarter than me. And it's just awesome getting to see what they're capable of, what they're capable of learning of. Get these amazing kids straight out of high school that didn't go to engineering school, but I got them doing all this hydraulics and hydrology that, kids straight out of college are just now learning. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's what I'm going with.
All right, another question? We still have a few minutes. Go ahead.
What were the pros and cons?
Pros and cons?
Yeah.
I think the pros are definitely that, I get to spend my day talking with kids and being a part of your daily interactions, and spending lots of time getting to know you is definitely a pro. I think that once we establish that relationship, it makes the day really fun. I think the cons right now are seeing how hard life can be on you guys through the lens of
pros and cons. Well, the pros, the myriad of types of news stories that I got to cover and the people that you met, you know, whether it was, you know, fires or interviews. The cons would probably be some of the long hours and they're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know, the pros always outweighed the cons, I guess, or I wouldn't have done it all those years.
The pros is it's a great job, we work outside, at least for I work outside, and getting to see all these cool areas, but the cons would be, when you first get into biology, it's all seasonal work, so you get laid off randomly when there's no funding, or whenever your time's up for that temporary job. But that's also the great part about it too, because after you're done, it's like, man, you're going somewhere else, you're going to get a different job in a different area with more cool experiences.
The pros are offering art to the community, giving people, again, an experience that they may not have had otherwise. The cons really, you know, I think the thing that keeps me up at night in this position is the fundraising, is, again, the resourcing. Those are the challenges of working in a nonprofit, because you're always trying to find that funding to produce the show or the class. That's the hardest thing. If that was taken off the table, I really wouldn't have any cons. I love dealing with the public. I love dealing with our community. And again, I love giving people the opportunity to be immersed in an art experience.
Pros, I get to do what I like to do. I mean, it's fun. I really enjoyed all the problem solving, puzzles and things like that. It's a steady job. It's not a super volatile job. People always need you to tell them where to move dirt. Cons, definitely sending out invoices, you know, asking people for money and saying, hey, can you pay us now? Because that's the most lame part of my job for sure. I'd rather just do the work and then just money just appear. That would be really neat.
All right, so I want to thank you, students, because you guys had some amazing questions that you asked our panel. So thank you for all of your questions. Can we go ahead and stand and thank our panelists for coming out and taking time out of their jobs to meet with you and talk with you? Give them a round of applause, please. All right, so I think we have probably about 3 minutes. Is that right?
I think so.
So you just, if the panelists have any questions for the students, they can ask them. Otherwise, you guys could just hang out in your seats. You can.
I would add one thing. When she was asking about pay and rewards, I got to thinking, over the years I got various awards for broadcasting and newscasts, but there was one award that I received that was more important to me than anything else, and it was I think it was an Associated Press Best Investigative Reporting. And it was a year when there was a lot of things going on at the Sheriff's Department. This was back in the early 1990s. And my reporting led to these female deputies becoming empowered to level sexual harassment allegations against the sheriff. And it led to eventually the sheriff resigning and being put out of office because of these misdeeds. And that award meant more to me than anything else because of the impact that it had on the community, that it changed something for the good.
All right, thank you. All right, so any questions, any other follow-up questions, anything else you would like to ask the students? Or let the students know about your job? Okay, so just kind of hang out for a few minutes until the bell rings.